You've probably done it before. Someone says something kind, maybe about your work, your energy, or the way you handled something. And before you can even think, you reject it. You laugh it off. You downplay it. You redirect it. Anything but take it in. It's strange, isn't it? That a few kind words meant to build you, can make your body tighten like it's under threat. You want to feel grateful, but something inside whispers, that's not true. And so you dodge. You minimize. You turn what should be warmth into discomfort. Compliments should feel good, but for many of us, they don't. They feel like exposure. Like someone is seeing something you've worked hard to hide. Or worse, something you don't believe is real. And the truth is, your brain doesn't reject compliments because it's humble. It rejects them because it's confused. Compliments are mirrors. They show us how others see us, not how we see ourselves. And when the reflection doesn't match the image in our head, it creates tension. That tension is called cognitive dissonance, the mental discomfort that happens when reality challenges our internal narrative. If, deep down, you believe you're not enough, that you're average, messy, or undeserving, then someone saying you're amazing doesn't land as truth. It lands as error. Your mind treats it like a bug in the code, so it corrects. It rejects the compliment to restore equilibrium. You laugh, you deflect, you say on no jor, not because you're modest, but because your brain is protecting its self-image. It's not pride, that it's self-defense. Because compliments don't always build. Sometimes they threaten the identity we've built around struggle, inadequacy, or invisibility. If you've spent years learning to survive by being overlooked, being praised feels unsafe. It makes you visible, and visibility invites judgment. So you shrink again, not because you hate the light, but because you don't trust it. There's a reason being praised can feel like pressure. Compliments, by their nature, create expectations. The moment someone says, "You're so good at this," your mind translates it into, "I have to keep being good at this." And just like that, kindness becomes a standard. You start wondering if you'll ever live up to it again. It's not that you can't handle praise. It's that you associate it with performance. Many of us grew up in environments where validation was conditional. You got praised when you did something right, not simply for existing. So your brain learned, praise is earned. And if you haven't done anything extraordinary lately, you feel you don't deserve it. So when someone gives you a compliment, it feels like they're mistaken, or worse, lying to make you feel better. That's not insecurity. That's learned conditioning. Your self-worth system has been programmed to only accept feedback that aligns with your internal logic and to reject anything that doesn't. That's why you believe criticism more easily than kindness. Because criticism fits the script. A compliment is never just about the words. It's about what it activates. When someone says, "You're beautiful," your brain doesn't only process the sentence. It scans your memories. Every moment you were made to feel unattractive, unseen, or unwanted. And if those memories are heavier, they'll win the argument. So even when the present is kind, the past pulls rank. You reject the compliment because it doesn't feel emotionally safe to accept it. That's the quiet war behind every no. I'm really not. You're not disagreeing with the person. You're defending your history. Compliments, then, become emotional landmines. They expose the gap between how the world sees you and how you still see yourself. And in that gap lies the story you've been carrying about not being enough, not being worthy, or not being ready to be seen. That's why so many people feel more comfortable when they're underestimated than when they're praised. Because being underestimated feels familiar. Praise, on the other hand, demands a version of you that you're still learning to believe in. There's also culture. In many communities, especially collectivist or high humility cultures, modesty isn't just encouraged, it's enforced. You're taught not to brag, not to feel yourself, not to let praise get to your head. And while humility is valuable, it can mutate into a kind of self-erasure. We learn to shrink in response to good things, to act small so others don't feel smaller. We perform unworthiness because it feels polite. But there's a subtle tragedy in that. If you reject every compliment as too much, you eventually start believing you are too little. Humility without balance becomes self-denial. And self-denial, repeated long enough, becomes identity. This is why even well-meaning people can't internalize kind words. They've spent years being told to dim their light for the comfort of others, until that dimness started to feel like safety. So when someone finally points to your brightness, it feels like a mistake. Your self-image is like a glass window. Everything you see about yourself is filtered through it. And for most people, that window is fogged with old fingerprints: shame, comparison, guilt, fear. Compliments try to reach you through that glass, but they distort on the way. You did great becomes they're just being nice. You look good today becomes they don't mean it. This distortion is powerful because your self-image determines your emotional reality. If you believe you're unworthy, your mind will bend every truth to fit that belief, even positive ones. So when someone offers you a compliment, your subconscious scans it for consistency. Does this match who I think I am? If it doesn't, it gets discarded. That's why self-love isn't about affirmations. It's about rebuilding the image that stands between you and reality. Every time you reject a compliment, you're reinforcing an old wound that you're confirming to yourself that being seen is dangerous, that it's safer to hide in self-deprecation. But your nervous system isn't trying to sabotage you. It's trying to keep you in emotional homeostasis, the same pattern that once kept you safe. If you once learned that attention leads to judgment or that visibility invites pain, your body will keep avoiding validation, no matter how positive it looks on the surface. That's why even small compliments can trigger anxiety. They're not just words, they're reminders that you're being seen. And being seen once meant being hurt. Healing that pattern doesn't come from forcing yourself to take the compliment. It comes from teaching your body that visibility can be safe again. So how do you relearn how to receive? You start by noticing the reflex, the urge to downplay or redirect. And then, instead of deflecting, you pause. When someone says something kind, just let it land. Don't rush to argue with it. Don't try to pay it back instantly. Just breathe and say, "Thank you." That's it. You don't have to believe it yet. You just have to allow it. Over time, that simple pause begins to rewire your response. It teaches your nervous system that being seen doesn't have to equal danger. That kindness doesn't have to equal debt. The goal isn't to become arrogant. It's to become open. Compliments aren't just about validation. They're about connection. They're tiny bridges that remind us we exist in other people's minds in ways we don't see. They show us that the version of us that lives outside our self-doubt might be kinder, brighter, and more complete than we think. When you reject that, you're not just blocking kindness, you're blocking intimacy. You're denying people the chance to know you. The truth is, people don't compliment to manipulate, they compliment to connect. And connection requires vulnerability. It asks that you let someone's perception of you exist alongside your own, without needing to argue with it. You don't need to earn every compliment. You don't have to prove every kind word right. You just have to receive it honestly. Because being worthy of love or praise isn't a reward. It's a reality that you've simply forgotten how to see. So the next time someone says, "You're doing great," don't shrink. Don't defend your flaws. Just smile and say, "Thank you." Because maybe, just maybe, they see something your brain hasn't caught up to yet. The real reason you can't take compliments isn't about insecurity. It's about identity. And identity, once shaped by pain, can always be reshaped by kindness.